the bed, open her leg. I was like, what's happening here? I had almost given in. Let me not lie. But that thing just came to my mind that, Emmanuel, remember the child of who you are. And what if you impregnate this girl and she's not the right person for you? I just said, hey, no. A couple of days after, she called. He said, Emmanuel, I'm sorry for what I did. But, Emmanuel, are you a Nigerian? I said, yes. He said, no Nigerian or average Nigerian guy would have that kind of opportunity and would not take advantage of it. I said, well, there are many Nigerians, but there are Nigerians as well, some Nigerians with a difference.
Welcome everybody to another conversation. The more that I do this, the more that I realize that everybody has a story. And not just a story, but a story that's able to uplift, encourage, and help people along the way with whatever challenges that they're facing. So I've got for you today's guest. And today's guest has walked through the toughest, most character-defining moments and challenges that life could throw at a man. Losing both parents and not being able to attend their burial, the shame of detention, and also facing situations where his faith was tested as a man. He is born in Egbe, Kogi State. I think I said that properly, in Nigeria. He is now an accountant, a payment administrator, and in this conversation, we will dive into how faith and wisdom has helped him navigate grief, pressure, detainment, and sexual temptation. So we're going to look at how personal discipline has allowed him to hold firm his strong belief and anchor himself as a man, even when everything around him is shaking. So this is not just going to be a story. This is going to be raw, it's going to be real, and it's going to be inspirational. So stay with us to the end and let's dive right into it. Welcome, Emmanuel.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
How are you doing?
Not bad at all.
Awesome. I know you just came from
church.
So you're dressed pretty smart. Yeah, looks nice. Looks nice. So you grew up in Egbe, Kogi State. Do you want to tell us what's that environment like and how did it sort of shape who you are today?
Okay. I didn't grow up there.
Okay.
I'm from Egbe.
Oh, okay.
Kogi State, yeah. But I was born in Lagos and I grew up in Surulere, Lagos State. Okay. For those who know Surulere, I'm sure Lawansi to be precise, man.
Yes. I'm not that familiar with.
Okay. Back home in Lagos, we have the mainland and the highland.
Yeah.
So I'm from the mainland. So they will say Ajepako for those who understand that. But so I was born in Surulere and Lawansi to be precise. So a street called Rojai.
Mm-hmm. And what was the area like? Was it more rough or more, should I say, safe?
All right. It was in between, I would say. It wasn't too rough, but we wouldn't call it what we call back home GRA, reserve area. No. So it's in between. Okay. Like the Lawansi proper, we have the scoundrels, these touts and stuff like that. But the Drojai, not bad, just like for middle income earners, I would say.
Okay.
Low income, middle income earners.
Okay. And what was your childhood like growing up in that area?
Well, normal childhood for someone, born in mainland. Okay, let me just give.
Because I know mainland is quite bubbly. It's active.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no day that is the same. There is always something new, something fun to do. I remember back, I was born in Lagos as well.
Okay.
And then we relocated to Mowe, Ogun State.
Okay.
And every day it's football. We will play football, go to school, come back home, and then you have the entire street coming together to do one activity or the other. So I know that it's a bit different in the mainland because the mainland is more, it's different in Lagos because Lagos is a lot more, I guess there's a lot more activities that's happening there versus in Mowe that I grew up.
Yeah, that's how it is. So when I was growing up, normal proper guy, area boy, not area boy really, but street guy. Let me use the word. Let me not use the word area.
Okay.
So street guy, you come back from school, remove your shirt, play football, have fun, enjoy yourself. And I know during Christmas, it's not like how quiet it is there. You know, we do these festivals,
tents, big tents outside.
Exactly. I can remember in those days when, Tupac, Return of the Mark, during this Christmas festival, you will bring some DJs. And I remember then that we used to do all this Return of the Mark. Can I still remember the lyrics? Return of the Mark. Something like that. Like I said, it's not the posh ones like Island is more or less the middle income, civil servant and stuff like that.
In that, because you have the island and then you have the mainland. In the mainland, there's a lot of hustling that happens. So I know you mentioned like everybody lives on the street.
Yeah.
In the sense that it's such a big community that you need to be street smart in Lagos to survive in Lagos.
Street credibility.
Street credibility as well. So were you part of let me ask, how street smart were you?
Well, before I gave my life to Christ, I was, not really the bad one, but I wouldn't say I was the good one as well. I was just in between. Okay. You understand, where not causing trouble, but at the same time, it's not that I was an example. You would say that. Okay. So I was just in between,
But why in between? What was? Because usually when someone says in between, it makes me think there's something that's not letting you go that far.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, my parents. My dad was a disciplinarian. So, like you rightly said, when you were trying to introduce, he's late now. So it was a disciplinarian. It was always like this. I'm being the last. No, Emmanuel, I don't want you to do this. I don't want you to do that. But you know why I would say I wasn't that good and wasn't that bad? Because there's this betting we would do. We're playing penalty where you put money. And at times then there's this dice, you roll dice, stuff like that.
I remember those,
and also, I don't know if you did it in your own time. There's this rubber band.
We used to do that.
So this was what was like when I was growing up, and there's this ice cream stick, where you play.
Yes,
I don't know if you did that. So these are the
used to play this one where we put rubber.
Exactly. Just like a sling or catapult, they would say, but the more of the local, the street one, So that's how my childhood was.
Okay. So you mentioned that you're in between, so not necessarily bad, not an example as well. Were you born in a Christian household?
Yeah, I was, my first church, Ekwe Church, and if you know a little bit of Ekwe Church, it used to be called Evangelical Church of West Africa, but now it's called Evangelical Church Winning Hall. Okay. So I used to go to church, follow my parents to church, and I think my dad was so much particular about me, maybe being the last that I just want you that, he was always keeping eyes on me, keeping tab on me. I remember that, let me tell you some of the bad parties where he would say, oh, man, go to church. And there's this man, his name, we used to call him Baba Shea then. He had table tennis. So they will call us, I don't know, I will say this, more or less like the owner's children, but they call it Omonile back home. So we'll be anyone coming to play, they'll pay 5 naira or something like that. Right. So we'll be the one to play against the person. So instead of going to church, I would just go there. So there was this, one of the days I will not forget when my dad, he went to church, he was like, where's this boy there? So I think the person I had to know what the topic of the sermon was then, because then it will come, okay, what was the topic of the sermon this if you were in church? I think the person I had didn't actually go to church, and he just gave me one funny topic. When I go, Emmanuel, they used to call me Larry there. What was today's sermon? What was the topic of today's sermon? I said, Hey, I just gave him something. He said, is it the same church I went to? That same church? I had to lie, but this is part of the things I said was bad. But the other part that was good was not that I was always causing trouble or looking for trouble or something like that. No, but the part that you play betting, what they didn't expect me to be doing, or telling you to go to church, you go somewhere. You understand? But that was just it. A mix of good and bad, I would say.
I mean, that sounds rather normal to some level, because I was expecting some hardcore.
Well, what was not normal there?
Yeah.
Let me say that again. Okay, my mom is late now. Was when then my mom was a trader. So she had this, she used to sell provisions, all this Milo, Bonfita and stuff like that. And sometimes she would tell me to stay there. And there was this guy that we used to play penalty together betting. So, I'll go and take from the money. If I've sold any, use the money for the betting.
Okay,
And,
yes.
since it's not something that she will come back and be counting what she left before leaving, So there's some of the bad things.
You got away with it.
Yeah, definitely, because she wasn't taking stock of the provision. So I could get away with it. Maybe two naira. Then it used to be, 10 kobo, 1 naira. 1 naira used to be coin like £1, something like that. So that was the bad part. But like I said, the good part is not that I was always going to look for trouble. But at least a bit of stealing,
Okay.
Or that they will give you cloth to wash. Any one naira you need.
You just try to find it.
That is just, most time we teach the teenagers now that, don't do this. But some part of you will say, you did this when you made much.
So let me explore that a little bit.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure, because in Lagos, there must be a group of people that you knew that you would say, these people are bad people.
Mm-hmm.
You must have known people like that. So how important is it to, or why didn't you join that? I know you mentioned that it's because of your parents. Now the question is, how important is it to have a foundation like that sort of mentors you away from, I guess, exploring those really dangerous things?
Okay.
Because they say that show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are. Mm-hmm. So and you, I know you teach the teenagers classes, so I'm just curious to hear. Okay, what can parents do, and maybe what did your parent do that allowed you not to stray too far?
Okay. So like I said earlier, my parent, especially my dad, was always keeping tab on me. And also, for those who grew up with African parents, sometimes they don't need to beat you. There's a way they will look at you. That they will look at you in 3D. And you know what that 3D means? If you mess up, you're going to be deaf today. You're going to be deaf. The discipline, the first day, discipline will lead to your deafness and daftness. So while I was growing up, they were Christians, not really, nominal Christians, I would call them, but there's this, an African parent would not want you to be, would not want you to join bad gangs because there's so much attached, a lot of importance to their name. Like Bible says, a good name is better than riches. So most time they will just sit you down there, Emmanuel, remember the child of who you are.
Yes.
And oftentimes, words like that, they are like your shadow. Anywhere you go to, they follow you. Like, Emmanuel, hey, there are things you could do, but remember the child of who you are is like a restriction. So things like that place restriction on us, where oftentimes we never knew it to be reflection, but we used to reflect on words like that. Remember the child of who you are. Sometimes they'll say, charity begins from home.
But what does that really mean when they say, remember the child of who you are? What does it really mean?
Okay.
Because my parents have said it to me before.
Like I said earlier too, I said a good name.
Right.
A good name is better than riches and gold. I don't know if you watch this a series on Netflix, Adolescence, where the boy committed a crime, but he didn't know the severity or the impact of the crime. So most time when they tell you to remember the child of who you are, that means whatever you do, if it's wrong, it's not going to affect you alone. There's what we call ripple or multiple effect. So it's not going to affect you alone. It's going to affect your parent, because if they're going to say anything, they'll say Emmanuel or Larry, the son of Mr. This. Yes. So you mean it doesn't stop with you, it extends to your parent. So that's what it means, that if you're good, they're still going to refer back to your parents. And if you are bad as well, they're still going to refer back to them. So if you remember the child of who you are, you will do all within your power to protect the name.
Yes.
Yeah.
And would you say that's something that you're doing with your own children? And then you have 2 boys and a girl.
Yes. That is what I do with them. Like, oftentimes, especially the country that we're in, where you can't discipline your children the way we were disciplined. You understand? So oftentimes you have to sit down and use more of the words. Apart from prayer, I'm a prayer person. If you know me, I pray a lot, but it's not about the children we have now. They are more of the why generation, where they want to know why about everything. Yes. Go and sleep. Why?
Yes.
Go and do this. Why? So, and before, what I try to do as a parent is to be proactive. Before my child gets to a point where I won't be able to exert that control, as they get older, the control becomes lesser from the part of the parent. So the more you sit them down, talk to them about life, talk to them that some of the things you guys are trying to, or what you're trying to do now, is something I've done in the past. And some of these things I regretted doing them. And I don't want them to follow the same path. Like I always tell the teenagers that people should be able to go about the affairs of your life by observing your step. So now the question is, like I told them today, I said, are you a wonder or a wanderer? So it's either you live as an example or a warning. So that each time people talk about it, they'll say to you, oh, every time I come to this guy, it's always a solution to my problem. It's always adding value to me. So these are the things I do with my kids, that even if I was raised well, good, I want my children to be a better version of me.
Yeah. I mean, the word, remember the son of whom you are, what it says to me is an idea of a bigger picture. Because a lot of times we can be, I heard something about the difference between perception and perspective.
Okay.
So perspective is, so if you want to make your life better, is what this former spy in the USA said. If you want to make your life better, you need to switch from just looking at your own perspective, but looking at perception of other people.
Okay.
Because what happens is you start to look at it from the eyes of other people. How will they perceive it? And then that can help you make better judgments. So a lot of times when we teach our children, we forget to explain to them the bigger picture. So that's what that word says to me. Anyways, remember the son of whom you are. Like you said, what happens and whatever decision you make today doesn't just affect you. There's a bigger picture. It affects us, your brothers, your sisters, and all of that stuff. So that's awesome. Now let's talk about your faith, because you've said that a lot.
Okay.
Growing up in an environment where there are hustlers and, you know, bad gang, good gang, whatever you want to call it. And now being a prayer warrior, being a teacher, a minister. At what point did your faith get real? To say, you know what, this is the life I want to choose. This is how I want to model my path. Especially you said your parents were nominal Christians.
Right.
But I think you've taken it a step further. At what point did that become real?
So, yeah, like I said, like I've always wanted to be a better version of my parents so that my children too can be a better version of me. And I can remember vividly, that was in 1999 when I was about to write my WAEC. We call it West Africans, you know, which is equivalent to GCSE or GCE or something like that. Yeah. So I remember a couple of friends. I used to go to church, but they were talking about things in the Bible, you know, and I sat down there and I couldn't, contribute to what they were saying. So it was then when I got to mine, I reflected, I said, okay, you say you're a Christian. And Christians were talking. You couldn't even say anything. So I'm this person where I wasn't preached to be born again. It was there, it was from that reflection I knelt down and said, God, I think though I may see myself as a Christian, but I'm not the kind of Christian that I've heard people, or like I said, I'm a Christian and I couldn't contribute to what my friends were saying. It was then I reflected on it and I gave my life. And gradually, I started growing, studying the Bible. And that was when I did my baptism in Ekwa. And that was where I got the name Emmanuel from. But like I said, my native name, I'll call it, is Olanrewaji. So Emmanuel. So when it was then later I found out that I had to do baptism. So instead of what I used to do before going, to play table tennis, instead of going to church, I started going to church more often. And before I knew it, I started growing. And, and I had this teacher then. It's like an uncle to me, Uncle Delia Ben. If he's going to watch it, kudos to you. Thank you for being part of my life. So then I started seeing Christianity different, not you being a churchgoer, but like Bible says in Antioch that they were first called Christians not because they were going to church, but because their way of life was like that of Christ. So it was in 1999 it became real to me.
And, a lot of people would say that Christianity is just a way for people become Christians because they want to hide their weakness. So there are weak people that then call on to a more superior being to then say, okay, they call it hope, that it gives me hope. And that's why you're a Christian, because you're weak and then you get hope. What do you say to those people?
I think that's completely wrong, I would say. You've heard this word grace. Like I was teaching the teenagers today. This journey in life is like a race. And the word grace, the G factor is the God's element or the God's factor in every race. So if you don't acknowledge God, one thing is inevitable, death. And if you've ever sat down and say that this thing is inevitable, the question, like I do tell people, it's like a football match. We have the first half You go and rest. Then the second half. What if there's a second half, which I believe there is? The question is, if I find myself in the second half and I discover that this God that people were saying is actually real, what would it be like? So like I do tell people, I would rather tell you, and for those listening to me, I would rather tell you to believe in God. So that even if you die is not there, you have nothing to lose.
Exactly.
Than for you not to believe in Him and get there and you have a lot to lose.
Yeah.
So which one would you prefer? I think you'll prefer the better option.
I completely agree. I've always thought of it that way as well. To say that, okay, what am I losing by putting my faith and deciding to live this way? What am I really losing out? I can do anything or most things that people can do that we consider fun, except for the fact that I'm living with a vision, looking forward to what is to come. Like you said, like the second half.
But to wrap up that quickly, is not being weak. But there's a part in the Bible which I like. He said, it's only a fool that says in his heart there's no God. So it's not being weak. It's just you. I don't want to be foolish.
Yes.
I don't want to be foolish. So, and we'll get there. Like I told you about faith and wisdom. I want to be, we have smart people, but we have wise people. I want to be among the wise. And it's only the wise people that get to their destination.
So what's the difference between wise and smart?
Okay, right. The people out there without God or without the fear of God in them, they are smart. And I'll tell you, the Bible says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. It's not the beginning of smartness. So you need that fear of God in you. You understand, to be wise. Like I do tell the teenagers, we have 3 Ds in life for you to succeed. I made mention of something about race in life, our journey. We have what we call desire. We desire to be this, we desire to be great. But that desire has to be backed up with your determination. But there's something very key, the last D, which is your discipline. You understand? So you have to be disciplined. So discipline has to do with being wise, because discipline is like setting boundary for yourself. But I'm sure you've heard of these scammers. Some back home, they call them Yahoo boys.
Yes.
Those guys are smart, but they are not wise, because you shouldn't enrich yourself by making other people cry. I don't know if So if you make your money and also being a blessing to others, you are being wise. But if you are enriching yourself by making others to cry, you are only being smart, taking advantage of their vulnerability.
Yeah.
Do you get it?
Yeah.
So that's the difference between being smart and being wise, because being wise means you have the fear of God in you.
Yeah. Interesting. Let's talk about the discipline, the last part, the discipline that you mentioned. So being a man, I know the temptations that we face. And some people think, oh, once you're a Christian, you just turn blind eye. Once you're married, you turn blind eye or whatever to these things. But at the end of the day, we're all in the flesh and temptation do come. I believe we were talking and you mentioned that you had some girls proposition to you sexually and you had to turn them down. Now, in a world where that is celebrated, so, you know, they could talk about body counts. I'm not sure if you... they talk about body counts.
I'm a street guy. So a street guy, but you know, someone who has known Jesus. But
exactly.
The street is still in me a bit.
Yeah. So it is celebrated when, you know, you say, oh, yeah, I've been with this many. So to have to turn them down, maybe let me hear from you. What's... Tell me about that moment, and why did you decide to uphold your faith and your belief rather than succumbing to such temptations?
All right. Thanks for that question. I love it. Like I said, before I came to the UK, I was attending EQUA. And EQUA really shaped me up, because in EQUA, one of the things is that then I used to believe getting pregnant is via Bluetooth. That you don't need to, you have to just stay next to a girl and that person.
Oh my goodness.
That was how where, you know, when I say that was not how we were taught, but more or less how we were taught in EQUA. And what also helped me was that in EQUA, if you mess up, when I say mess up big time, they eventually get pregnant. You know, they will tell you, not only your parents, everyone to stand up in church.
Wow.
They say, oh, we want to discipline these people. You know, back home, for those who understand my language, they'll say, and they're not. So your dad is an elder, maybe your mom, whatever it is, every one of them will have to relinquish their position, whatever the position they hold. So growing up, and I remember a girl was punished then, and the dad, everyone was called to stand up in church
Would the parents know about it, like beforehand? Or is it a surprise to them?
I think they would know if the parents were elders or notable people in church.
Okay.
But what I just want to bring out was, the dad of this girl was one of those elders that would say, oh, don't do this, don't do that, not knowing his own daughter would, smear, or let me say, would cast aspersion on his own reputation. And that day when she was called to start under parent, the man could not look up. And I said to myself, would I like to put my parent in this kind of position? So that's one of the things that shaped me up that no. And I said earlier again that a good name. And each time I think about that this girl, as would I use the word rubbish, if grammarians would permit me, rubbish the name of the parent, because when she was to be punished, because I believe it was her own choice to get pregnant or whatever she did, but the ripple effect or the ripple effect, it did not only affect her, it affected the parent and also things like that. Each time I remember, that is one of those things that shaped in me in life. So I think that's part of what has instilled the discipline in the church. And also, the more you read the Bible, I remember, I think it's Psalm 119 verse 10. And that's one of the verses in the Bible that also shaping my thought process about God. It said, pure by guiding it with the word of the Lord. And, I said to myself, being wise means being pure, living right. I know I can't do it by my power, but at least if I try, God will be there to help. And this is, like I said, growing up in Equa and, reading the Bible, these are the things that shape my discipline, or that instill discipline in me.
So was it easy?
Well, it's not. And that would take me to another level where, like when I came to the UK, this was where a couple of girls begging me to.
You see, that's the culture difference that I noticed as well.
Okay.
So in Nigeria, well, back then, it was the issue of sex and that topic.
Okay.
It's almost not spoken of. Like you said, it's like Bluetooth. The moment you get close, that's how they taught you. So you don't even think about, you might think about, but you don't even talk about it or venture into there. And then as soon as you come here, it's a completely different thing because everybody sort of talks about it. I mean, today you would hear people say it, or don't teach my children, don't talk about sex or anything with my children or anything. Like they don't even talk about sex with their own children. That's what I meant to say. And because they think they're still too young. I was 12 when I moved.
Okay.
And I attended the high school at 12-year-old. And in my first few weeks, some of my friends brought a phone, said, look at this. And it was porn at age 12. And at age 12, that's when I heard that some of them were already involving and engaging in sexual activities at age 12. And they started much younger. So I think it is very important to be willing and open to talk to your children about sex, what it means, and the dangers of it, and what God intended for it. That's me, because it's already prevalent. It's already there, especially in this Western world. What's your thought about that?
Okay, let me start with this verse in the Bible. Proverbs 4:7 says, wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom. In all thy getting, get understanding. Knowledge is progressive. And also, then and now is different. You understand? So like I said, the children of this generation, they are the Y generation. They want to know the reasons for everything. And in a country where we are, where you can't discipline your children the way you want, then you must be able to create time to talk to them. I remember one day when my son walked up to me, the elders, and said that he was asking me about gay, this and that. And I said, okay, sit down, let's talk about it. So, and I explained.
How old is your son, sorry?
He's turning, 11 He's turning 11 in July 7th.
Right.
So he walked up to me and he was like, Dad, gay, this is my friend. My friends in school were telling me about gay. And I said, okay, sit down here. That I should have even told you about this before now. And I sat him down and I explained to him that this is what gay means. And God is against it. But that does not mean as a Christian to hate gay. We are not meant to hate people. But this is God's standard. And this is what God would expect from us as Christians. When God created we humans, what he created was Adam and Eve. He didn't create Adam and Steve. So you need to understand that. And one thing you must understand is don't try to help God or don't try to change his plan. And the country, or would I say a town that tried to do that, trying to, like a male figure trying to sleep with another male figure, it destroyed them. So as a Christian, would you want that for yourself? He said no. So, and again, when you are talking to the children of this generation, don't be, like they will say in my class, the teenagers, African parents, take time as you're talking to them, look at their expression. Be sure they are contented with the response or the responses you are giving. Because oftentimes, I mean, Father, whatever I tell you, you must, no, it doesn't work out there. It won't work.
Yeah.
So sometimes, okay, that, so it went further to say, if God says this is wrong, so why are people still doing it? I said, that is why we Christians, we've been called to be, he said we are in the world, in this world, but we should not be of the world. So the people who are of the world, they can do that because they do not fear God. And that's like I was saying to you earlier, where that is where wisdom comes in. When you say people are wise, I don't expect wise people to be involved in things like this. And I said, okay. So I said, so it's either you are on the path of God or on the path of the world. And as you know, I do teach him that the God of this world is the devil. He's been defeated, he's a fallen angel. Do you want to be on the path of the devil by doing what is wrong? Or you want to start on the path of God? He said, God, I will start on the path of God. I said, that's justice. So that is it. So, but to wrap up that part is, take time. Take time to explain things to this. I know we are very busy, but oftentimes, my home, we have devotions. And sometimes, before they go to bed, they want to ask, sometimes it's just 5 minutes. And that 5 minutes could go a long way in transforming the life of your children, because the Bible said the difference between life and death is just a thin line. So it is from making someone to be a wonder or a wanderer. It's just a thin line. But if you can spend that 5 minutes sometimes with them and say, son, this is it. Don't be tired of answering their questions because it will go a long way. What will take you from where you are to where you want to be is knowledge. And like I do tell people, 2 things make people perish in life according to the word of God. He said, where there is no vision, the people perish. He said, my people also perish for lack of knowledge. So oftentimes as Christians, this is where we should come in, that if you don't want your children to perish, then the vision matters a lot, and also knowledge.
Yeah. I'll let you finish the story though.
Okay, which of the story? So
you came to the UK.
Yeah, I came to the UK, I had preemptive plans. I would say, when I get that, I'll do this and that. But there's something I need to say quickly here. I used to be when I became born again in Ekwa, I used to be an interpreter. Anytime they invited someone to church, and then we've got our native languages in back home. So whenever they invited any speaker to church, I'll be the one interpreting to that speaker for the speaker. So one of the speakers that came, because I don't know now, but then Ekwa Ali would see vision or stuff like that. The man just said, young man, be careful of who to marry. So when I came to the UK, I heard the first church I joined, I wouldn't mention name. Oh, Emmanuel, what are you here for? I'm here to study. I came to do, I started ACC, Association of Chartered Certified Accountant back home. So I came here to complete it. So when I got it, people were like saying, Emmanuel, the quickest way to settle yourself here is you have to be smart, look for a girl, this and that. And I remember what they told me that back home, that be careful of who to marry. And I don't want to be this kind of guy where you impregnate a girl and you say, go your way. I don't want to be that. So the question is, would I take my time to choose the right person and have peace forever, or I'll look for one of the quickest ways, I would say, because I don't think that's the only way to sort yourself out quickly and, defy myself. So it was really hard. And I remember a girl, let me quickly say that first story, where, we used to, if she was my friend, we used to, pray together occasionally. But one day, I don't know what came over her. She invited me over to her house. I'm like, we were talking. Later, I just noticed the way she jumped on the bed, opened her leg. I was like, what's happening here? So at the point, I sat her down and said, you say you have a boyfriend. Why? She was trying to force me. I had almost given in. Let me not lie. But I don't know. There's this stuff where that thing just came to my mind, that Emmanuel. Like I said, remember the child of who you are. And what if you impregnate this girl and she's not the right person for you? I just said, hey, no. What's wrong with you? So, like a couple of days after, she called. He said, Emmanuel, I'm sorry for what I did. But she followed up with a question. Said, Emmanuel, are you a Nigerian? I said, yes. He said, no Nigerian or average Nigerian guy would have that kind of opportunity and would not take advantage of it. And I look at her, I said, well, there are many Nigerians, but there are Nigerians as well, some Nigerians with a difference. And I belong to that, but not because I'm in Nigeria, because I'm a Christian and I know where I'm going. So that was one. And there was another one. There was this girl, a white girl, but I don't want to mention the country she's from. We were friends. One day she visited me and like this and that, playing. All of a sudden, we were trying to extend our play, beyond. Later, I just pushed her away. I said, no. I said, Manu, what's wrong? I said, nothing. I'm sure she would think maybe this guy is important. So one day I invited her to church and I was teaching the teenagers and the youth there. And fortunately, what we were teaching on that day, what I was teaching them was abstinence. After the service, said, I know you are a reverend father. He said, oh, was it because of this? That's why you didn't do this? I said, something like that. I like to walk my talk. And because I don't want to be teaching people, and what I'm doing is quite contrary to what I'm teaching. And finally, which will lead to another story, is when I had the issue of my visa and stuff like that, there was a girl, when I was detained, she called me. He said, Emmanuel, I asked you to impregnate me so that I will sort you out in this country. He said, but you chose to go to detention instead of sleeping. I wanted to smile and I started shedding tears. He said, I've never seen a man like you before. He said, why would you choose detention instead of... He said, I came to you, said, sleep, have your child or have kids for you, sort you out. And he said, you've chosen that path. So it's so challenging to uphold your faith, your discipline, but it's worth it in the end, I would say.
Wow. I mean, that last one took me out. Choosing detention because there are a lot of, and people might not understand this, but there's a lot of play that's happening there.
Okay.
Imagine someone who is almost about to be deported. No visa. Not many family. Was it just you? No family around. A man alone. And you are faced with two options. And one of the options is have sex with me, where they're offering it to you as a way to settle yourself. And the other is detention. No man, or not many men, would say, I would rather serve detention. For those that don't know, it's sort of almost like you're arrested.
Arrested, yeah.
Rather than doing that. So, was it just that word, remember the son of whom you are, that really held you grounded? I know that coming with that is also the faith that you had. You mentioned that you were teaching in church and you have this knowledge of the Bible and what is expected of you and what's not. Would you say that they had equal, should I say, responsibility for the decision you made at that time?
Yeah, it played its own part, but so many factors in place. Like I said, prior to coming, the church I was attending back home, they just told me, be careful of who to marry. And funny enough, that vision continued. And you know one funny thing about it? The church echo, they hardly see vision. But where the vision came from, I don't know. Only for me to come, the first church I was attending here was CAC. The head of the CAC, whatever came. So they're like, oh, pray for everyone. So when it was my turn, I knelt down before him. And I said, oh, Daddy, I came to study. Please pray that, I should complete my ACCA in time and stuff. And when he wanted to pray, he said, son, be careful of who to marry. So that also played a part that if I'm to be careful of whom to marry, and also that's one of the quickest way to stay here. It's something is one of the biggest decisions in life that let me just take the easiest route. Look, and whatever it is, no ball. Like I said, the church where I grew up from, the vision and my own self-determination really helped me to keep away from this. And also, like I said, sometimes there are decisions you don't make in the heat of the moment because those decisions don't really last. And I remember one brother who told me something which I'll never forget. He said, my brother, I said, sir, he said, it is better to be in the detention of home office than to be in the detention of marriage. Don't lose your head. I'm sure if he's listening, his name is Isaac, or Isaac Hammer. He said, Emmanuel, that's what I would say. He said, because if you get it wrong with your marriage in this country, that's it for you.
Yeah.
Because back home, maybe one head, the father, you can do everything, but two heads. When they say two heads are better than one, it's a reality in the UK. So these were, and they are still the things that shaping me up where I just don't do things the way I feel like I should do it. I do it because what I'm doing, I believe, is right and is something that I'll be proud of in the future.
Right. So personal conviction.
Yeah.
Would you say that God still speaks? Because you've mentioned there the first instance in your church in Nigeria where the man saw a vision and said, be careful who to marry, specifically to you. And then you come here in the church and then someone comes and says, be careful who you to marry. Is that God telling you, be careful who to marry?
God still speaks, capital yes. Like I said, I'm not that spiritual, but I'm a child of God in my own little space. Prior to coming over, I prayed about this UK that God help me. And I had a vision. The person in the vision told me two things. He said, Emmanuel, be careful so that you will not be deported. And also pray that you should make heaven.
Seriously?
Yeah. So when I got to the UK, let me tell you the link now. The school that brought me in, I didn't know I was going to. How much did I pay? When people were paying 1 point something million naira in Nigerian currency, I only paid 250,000.
Wow.
So when I came in, I was only given 1 year visa. Before I knew it, they revoked the license of the school. So that first part of the dream, be careful not to be deported. Now I will link everything together and to tell you how everything happened, the visa, somebody saying choosing detention. So I was, I had 1 year visa when I was coming. The school, what's it called? License was revoked. I needed to look for another school. So it was so tight. In between then, my dad died. And I had only a few months on my visa, so I couldn't go. So when I did that first renewal, I was given 3 years. So the second extension of my visa after the 3-year lapse, so that would lead to what led to the detention and everything. So I thought, because I had started ACCA, I wouldn't need the IELTS, the English stuff you have to do, which is one of the requirements to extend your visa here. So unfortunately, I had just a week or a couple of weeks left. So I was told I needed to do the IELTS, the English test, because I've not completed any degree or have not done any degree in the UK, not just only ACCA. And I think I was at the professional stage. We have 3 stages. So I needed to write IELTS English exam. So when I did it, the result was released the day my visa would expire.
Wow.
So when I did the needful and I sent it over, only for Home Office to return it and said I didn't include passport photograph, and there was one other thing they said I didn't include. So by the time they wrote back to me, they now said, oh, though you put your stuff in, your application in before on the day of what's it called, or the expiry date, but the fact that we are returning it back, your visa is expired and you need to go. Oh, that was what led to this issue of detention. So at the point I was told to be reporting. Reporting is where you go to the Home Office, you report that whatever, when they need you, you always make yourself available. So in 2015, precisely April, so one of the days where I went to report, where you would just sign go, I was detained. So that was
At that point. No warning.
No
nothing.
warning. It's like walking into a lion's den.
Wow.
Now I'll come to where, you mentioned earlier about faith and wisdom. So then I had that faith that could move me mountain, that, oh, God will do it. Yeah, you guys, you detain me now. I know God will bring me out. Oh, like play like we say back home. It now dawned on me that this was real.
Wow.
What would I do? So I had to call this and that. So later they said, Emmanuel, the only way to get yourself sorted is to look for someone in the UK who's like your partner, articulate. That is where I learned a lot about immigration case, where I had to learn. So there's what we call articulate, family and private life.
Yeah.
For those listening there, that's one of the ways if you want to get yourself sorted in this UK, especially if you're a single person, if you have a family ties there, either your parent, if you're a minor, that will work for you. But if you're above 18, you need to marry or have somebody as a partner. So
who to do that?
It's, when I got to detention, I had to learn all this. So when I was detained, so they got me, what's it called, like a freelance lawyer. Okay. Yeah, so it was like, do you have any partner? How old are you? I said, right. I think I was in my 30s then. How old are you? I was like, this or that. Do you have any partner? I said, no. This and that. So after a while, I spent like 1.5 months in detention.
Wow.
A girl came to my rescue then. Again, a big shout out to Lamide, because it's likely going to say this. And, she stood for me. I said, I know Emmanuel, this and that. So I was, released from detention.
Just because she
stood that. She said she claimed to be my partner then. Right. So they said, okay, you have a family tie, but it's, I was more reactive instead of being proactive that, they did their investigation. They found out that that relationship wasn't that real. There was nothing to substantiate the authenticity of the relationship. So after a while, I was asked to keep reporting. So I was still trusting in God, the faith part of it. God, I know God will do it. That God, I just don't want to do this to wrong you, so you to sort me out. And I had this stuff that people would say that if you do God's will, God also will attend to yours. Yeah. So I felt I was teaching in church. God also would. Yeah. So I was applying that faith. So the second time I was detained again.
More than once.
September 22 to be precise, in 2015. So I was in detention for long. So it was the first one that I was detained that I said the girl called me and said, Emmanuel, you chose detention over there. So when I came out again, she felt, okay, Emmanuel, now you've been released. I said, no, I can't. I'm sorry. So the second time again, I walked in there. Then, where I was working, they gave me an accommodation. So they said they were about to declare me wanted. Because after 1.5 months, I didn't tell my boss where I was going, and I didn't tell them that I had issue with my visa. So as they were planning to declare me wanted to report to the police that this and that, I showed up. So I explained everything to my boss. He wasn't happy that he wouldn't want the company to be implicated, but because of God's favor and my integrity, because I always tell people, let your integrity precede you. Then I was a kitchen porter washing plates. But he said he observed that, Emmanuel, you understand English, you can do this. So I was doing like a waiter, waiting on, and also what's it called? Night portering is called, where you receive guests. I was working in a hotel then. You receive guests, check them in and rest like that. So that's what I was doing. So when they released me, they said, Emmanuel, please don't let this happen. So I continued. But what happened was, instead of now letting me to be a proper employee, which I was doing, they now said, no, there'll be a picker. I was like, what is a picker? Where, when people smoke, the compound, I'll be the one picking all the stuff. I said,
because of the immigration.
In the immigration state, so that there is a way of like saying, if anything happens, this guy is not part of us, he's just working on the side. It's one of my challenges in life, because then the stuff I was picking, people on the bus that know me, they will pass, then I will use my hoodie just to cover myself, picking stuff, I just care. And at that point, I was telling myself that, man, should go, stay, go, stay, go. But I said to myself, nobody brought you. It wouldn't make any sense for you to come over and go like that. To cut the story short, because of time, I was detained the second time. I was thinking, I'll go well. Then September 22. Now, instead of the first time they took me to Oxfordshire, but the second time I was taken to Dungarville, it's called, in Scotland. I've always wanted to go to Scotland, but I never knew what that means. So I got there. But, the first question you ask is, does God speak? God still speaks. I had the vision. Like I said, pray that you not be deported. And, that's it. So the second time too. And in between the first time, because I was released in ending of May, and the second time was in September, people were like, Emmanuel, go look for someone to impregnate. And that thing will say, remember what they told you. That be careful to marry. Go, but that is the only option. If there's no option, show me. I remember one of the options somebody gave me was, okay, maybe you do PhD. But my visa had already expired. And what Home Office did was, they never released my passport. Because the intention was for them, once I go and report, they'll take me with my passport and take me to airport and deport me from there. So there wouldn't be need to go and look for the passport and everything.
Right.
So the second time when I was detained, prior to detention, God spoke to me again. I saw a man, and he said in my dream, he said, I will tell God to show you mercy. When I went to report, I was detained. They moved me to Scotland. When I got there, I met a man. Recently, last week, I went to Scotland. He's that man. When I saw him, similar, very tall, like 6'3", he just looked at me at detention. He asked me a question, and I gave him an answer right away. He said, come, what's your name? I said, my name is Emmanuel. He said, where are you from? I said, oh, from Nigeria. He said, what's your other name? Olanrewaju. He said, I'll be calling you Olanrewaju. But he said, I don't know why I like you. And he took my case upon himself. And it was that man that helped me to come out. But at the point, the girl like that I said stood for me then couldn't stand the second time. So my case became caseless. There was nothing to stand on. No articulate to stand on, which is family and private life and stuff like that. What would I do? Then wisdom set in. I felt, before I said faith, God will do this and that. So in that detention, I made up my mind that I was going to go back home and ask God to speak. God, another thing, I had a dream. And the man showed me my future. Bro, I saw myself in one small room. Guy, the suffering was beyond imagination. And the person said, if you go home hungrily, that is what will happen. And I was working in GT Bank before I came to the UK. So my intention was, there was this man that really liked me. And he came to the UK then. The closeness, he was one of our customers in GTB. He stayed in my place. So he was into importation, exportation of cars. So he came, when he first came then, he said, Emmanuel, you'll be doing that for me. So my intention was, if I go back home, I'll talk to this man and we'll be doing business together. But what I saw my dream was contrary to that. Unfortunately, the man died. So that's why when people say there is no God, it's only a fool that says in his heart there is no God. He already told me if you go. And the person I actually thought was going to help
was nowhere to be found.
The man eventually died. So after a while from that Scotland Untitled Detention, the man I said, Pastor Joseph, God bless you, sir. Yes, okay, Emmanuel, I'll do this for you. Do asylum, Article 3. So with that asylum, it was that man that trained me on immigration stuff that is how to do it. And I don't know why. He said, you might be in one position to help in future. And, he explained things to me, how to get it done and stuff like that. So, and I was moved to Heathrow because it would be much easier from Heathrow if the asylum didn't go through. They would just deport me from them because there's a detention close to Heathrow.
Yeah.
So when I got there again and the man, we did wisdom. In out of me, man, this is what we do. Initially I wanted to say, no, I will not do that. I said, man, you have to use Panasha for those who don't understand. There are circumstances you find yourself. You don't need to be taught what to do. The situation, the circumstance will teach you what to do. So, and I said, okay, fine, just go with the flow. And that was how we did it. And when I got there, there was a doctor that attended to me. I also saw a vision. I was like, I went to the hospital when I claimed the asylum. And this was, why would I get there? From there, they released me. And I don't know what happened. The doctor did something which I would not want to disclose here. And from there, I was released December 8th. So I got to Manchester from London 2 a.m. Then the church I was attending, they had all lost where I was going, that they were going to deport me because there was no way out again. Even when my pastor saw me, he thought I was a ghost because I didn't tell them I had been released.
Wow.
So December 8, 2015. So they expected me to be reporting again. Like I said, that was where wisdom came in. I stopped reporting. I said, Emmanuel, Daniel never walked into lion's den. He was thrown in there. And even Daniel himself didn't know that, the lions were going to go on fasting. It was when he got in there, found out that, God intervened. Not that he walked in there. That you'll be walking into lion's den. Things don't work out that way. Wisdom is the principal thing. And I want to pass a message across there. When you say wisdom is the principal thing, the word principal is used in the place of learning. The principal is the head. That means wisdom is something that is learning, the place of learning, that if you've made this mistake before, be wise enough not to fall victim of the same. So it was then it dawned on me that, Emmanuel, Bible says something which I like. It said, the just shall live by faith. But it did not say, the just shall succeed by faith.
So I would just ask the question, how do you then balance that between obeying the law of the land? I would imagine that would be part of reporting.
Okay.
If I were to just push back on that, how would you balance that?
Obeying the law of the land. All right. That is where wisdom comes in. Now, the law of the land says I should be reporting, which I did the first time, which I did the second time. But it would be unwise for me to do it the third time. Because while I was there too, they gave me options I could take. And the option is, if you can't tell us you are in any relationship, you're going to be detained again and you'll be sent. So the question now is, if I'm going to do that, I need time. And that time, I may not get it by obeying the law of the land. That is why I said wisdom. And I'll tell you quickly a story if you've heard. There is a man in the Bible called David. There was a king then called Saul. He was chasing this one. He wanted to kill him. And this man eventually found himself in the midst of Philistines. Go and read it. He said, when the Philistines looked at him, they said, we know you. You are part of this man. And we're going to send you back. They said he pretended to be mad in order to save his life. He could have said the law of the land, I have to tell them truly. I have to be truthful. But at that point, he needed to do something to save his life. But one of the things I learned in my own difficult time or challenging time is there are things you do not because you want to do it. But one of the things you must not do is to do it once and say, it's the way. And you continue in it. Do you understand what I just said? There are times where It's just like saying you are being chased by a dog. And in order to escape, you jump over a fence. That does not mean to escape anything. You have to be jumping over a fence. You just did it because that was what you need at that point to escape. But that is not the right road. But once you find your feet, then go through the right road. So again, back to what you ask is, obeying the law, fine. But at that point, I needed enough time in order to find myself in the position to be obeying the law in the right way with peace of mind. That was what I did. So
I mean, there's a lot of things that I could talk about, a lot of questions that I have, but I think let's talk about something that you mentioned before.
Okay.
In everything that surrounded this detention issue, and I'm pretty sure it went over for months and months and months. It must have been tough.
Yeah.
It must have been, I guess, uncertain in terms of, okay, where do I stand? A lot of it warranted your faith to be shaken, but yet you decided to stay strong. But something also happened along that line is that your parents died, both of them, and because of the detention, you weren't able to attend their funeral.
Yeah.
How hard was that?
Well, it's one of the most difficult moments of my life. And in both of them, my dad died in 2010. My mom died in 2017. It's like being the last. And I remember when I was coming, my both parents, they shed tears because, like I said, I'm the last, very close to my parents. So the fact that I couldn't even see them before their death to get the last blessing, and also not to be there for their funerals, it was very, very painful. Because after their death, I kept on seeing them for over 2 years in my dream. You know, I was like, oh, is it because I didn't attend the funeral? I kept on seeing my parents. Yeah. So, but over time, I had to talk to myself and say, okay, Emmanuel, this has happened. Your emotions would not bring them back. And I remember one of my friends, I've never said this, so coming if you're listening, he said something. He sent me a text. He said, the departure of when I lost my dad, he said, the departure of your earthly father is to draw your heavenly father closer than you imagine. And I found comfort in that word. So, okay, now, not that. And when I lost my mom to no more, then God is my father. God is my all. So he's the father to the fatherless. So I found my solace in the word of God. And, you know, people around me.
Powerful.
And another thing again, I don't know if I've talked about this, is because of between 2013 and 2018. So I got qualified as an ACC, as a chartered accountant. But because of the visa issue and detention, I couldn't practice for 5 years. And not only one thing about accounting, if you don't practice, the accounting itself will leave you.
Yeah.
So for 5 years, I couldn't practice. And that also affected me. But notwithstanding, God has been able to restore, all the lost times.
So how do you find yourself back on your feet?
Well, like they say, every small step is a big step. And sometimes I saw that, those challenging moments as a bend in life. Bend is not an end. There are some bends when you see like, this is the end of the road, but you find out it's just a bend. It's not the end. So I just said to myself, I need to reinvent myself. So I just started, slowly. And that's one of the mistakes people do, where because you are at the top, you want to jump back to the top. No. You have to climb step again, gradually, and get there. And I will explain, just like someone who is barren, let's say for 10 years. If the person give birth, the child is not going to be 10-year-old. The boy or the girl is still going to pass through the normal stage, the growth stage before getting there. So that's just it. I just said to myself, every little step is a great step. Just keep taking it. And I do say this to people. What we have in life is classmates. We don't have life mates. I have my own life to live. You understand? As long as I'm not competing with anyone, and I've got God backing me up. So the sky is the starting point. So what I did was reinvent myself. And say, okay, Mano, You can't do this, you can't do this. Start from there. And that's it.
So before we wrap up, I want to have a deep reflection
Okay.
because this is who you are now. Married, 3 children.
Married a wonderful woman.
A wonderful woman.
Yeah.
Covered your back.
No. Truthfully,
Of course.
She came when I needed her the most, and she's been there by me.
Yeah.
Though I won't we fight. I won't come
Of
here.
course, as normal.
She's been there. Yeah. No. She's been very supportive, very helpful.
The thing is that your parents are not here anymore.
Yeah.
Would you say they left a legacy in you that you also want to pass on to your children? I believe as a parent, that is our primary responsibility.
Yeah.
To be able to raise the next generation on a legacy that we have built. And legacy is not necessarily about riches or wealth, but more about values and belief system that would help them navigate whatever comes their way through the Holy Spirit. Would you say that would be the case? Because your parents are not here. They're not here to tell you this or to tell you that. You have to charter your life the way you see it fit. And I would imagine that a lot of it is based on the legacy that your parents had already left on you.
So I just want to be sure of the question. Are you asking?
No, just get your thoughts about that.
The legacy they've left and the legacy I want to leave for my children.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, they've left good legacy, like I said. And one of the things I learned from my parents, especially from my dad, is he never borrowed. Like, he would always tell me then that, Emmanuel, whatever you've got, just be okay with it. He said he takes pride in walking than borrowing someone's car or borrowing someone's car and they'll be saying, look at that car, it's mine. He just borrowed it from me. So that's why with the little I earn, I don't earn much, but I've been able to manage myself within that. That's part of the legacy. But one of the things I would want to leave for my children, my own legacy, is the way of God. You know why I'm saying that? I said something from the beginning, the word grace. Everything we're doing, even both of us being here together, is a race. And we need God's factor in that race. So like I would always say, and I tell the teenagers, and that's what I tell my children, that don't take God out of anything. Because even in my difficult time, I told you, the faith is still God. The wisdom is still God. So without God, nothing. So I always say that my parents fear God, but not much as I do. And I will tell my children, if it might take anything away. Like someone told me, he said, Emmanuel, whatever it is that you think you have, they could take it away from you, your money, your house, your this and that. But whatever knowledge you have, nobody can take it away unless they kill you. And part of the knowledge, or I would say, part of the knowledge, we have no wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. The wisdom part is God. You understand? So what I will tell my children is, the way of God, don't depart from me. Don't depart. And for those listening out there, God. Because me being in the UK now, I have my own family. God has blessed me. It's just God. I said earlier, if I had left, if he had not shown me in my dream, the person I thought I was going to work with eventually died. So I'll be in Nigeria, the problem they have in the jackpot. Maybe I'll be jackpotting now. But now, I have no regret. And the reason being, I have a God. So the God's factor in everything. So the legacy I want to leave for my children is whatever it is, don't take God out of the equation.
Yeah.
If it's just little prayer, studying the word, just continue. Because God is all we have and God is all we need. I was so close to my parents, they've gone. But God is still there.
Yeah. I mean, let me chime in on that and just say that in your stories and everything and every time you referred to your parents, especially to your dad, you say, my dad told me this. And that only comes from time. I think we are in a society where time is of the essence. And a lot of us trade time with money. rather than family. So what I mean by that is we will prefer to work hard. I was reading a story yesterday about a nurse on TikTok where she missed church. Church members called her and they got no response. Then they reported it to the police. Police raided her house to find her dead.
Dead. I saw it.
You saw it as well in her room. And a lot of speculation says it's because she was working and working and working so hard as being a nurse. We know the amount of stress that's put on nurses in this country.
Yeah.
So any opportunity you get to get a shift, to make extra money, a lot of Nigerians, a lot of, should I say minorities, they take that opportunity. And that's a problem because I understand you need that, especially when you have a family, especially when you're a man in your home. What you said needs to resonate with every man. My father said to me, if you do not spend that time with your children, what are you saying to them?
So you said something here, like you said opportunity at what cost?
Yeah.
At what cost? I think we were having a discussion recently. You prefer availability over capability. You say you are capable as a father or as a mother, but you are not available. So how do we measure your capability when you are not available? So as parents, first you must be available. I think somebody was saying recently, oh yeah, but you can be available, but not emotionally available. You need to be available first before we talk about emotions. Be available. Then also be humble enough to help your children. This legacy you were talking about, to leave the legacy. Most times they want to see you walking the talk. So it is very important as parent to be available. I was working in Manchester, but I said it somewhere where my child, they were asked to draw their family, and my son drew his mom, drew himself, and the two younger ones. And I wasn't in the picture.
Wow.
So when I came to Negas, my wife just gave me the drawing that, see what your son. I said, where's me? He said, Daddy, you are not always around.
Wow.
It was then it dawned on me that I said, I'm doing this in Manchester, I'm making money. At what cost? I would rather, maybe because I'm a family-driven person, but you don't need to be a family. If you have a male and a female, male and female kids, the way they are wired, the boys learn more. They learn from their mom, but they learn more from their dad. Because oftentimes we, the fathers, we give discipline. The mothers give compassion. But you can't do this if you are not available. So your capability is a function of your availability. But if you are not there, who is there? And around over days, there's a story in the Bible that said the king and his, the king's men were there, but the place of David was empty. His place was empty. And that is what we're having in this UK. They are making all the money, but their place is empty in the life of their kids. And that is why instead of having examples or having, like in accounting, we say instead of having assets that we add value, what we're having now are liabilities.
Liabilities, yeah.
Because their place is empty. It's either they are not available or they are not available, but they have prioritized other things over their family.
Wow. So you have right now the opportunity to inspire a father, a young man, or anybody. What would be your last word to them to say, do this or consider this, to leave them with something?
I will use this story in the Bible. It said there were 10 virgins. 5 were wise. 5 were foolish. And those wise ones, they got to their destination. But they were able to get there because they made themselves available and they were well prepared. For those fathers out there and coming, be available for your family. And also not only be available, know the word. Word of God. There is a reason why I'm saying that. Everything in this was created by the word of God. And if you don't know the word of God, how would you impact your children positively? You know, I can tell her you want to become a doctor, become this. But I said 3 days earlier, you have the desire, they said, but if they are not disciplined, they don't have boundaries. You understand? They will get nowhere. And that boundaries must be set by you as a father, and they must see you following her. My child or my children, they see me praying. Where we redeemed, we just did 100 days. My son was asking that day, why are you not eating? I said, we are praying, I'm fasting. He said, oh, Dad, I will do that. So they want to see you doing it. They want to see you laying hand on them, praying for them. You may not know it, and I want to say this quickly to wrap up. Sometimes we think we are helping our wife. Oh, I'm trying to help my wife. No, you are trying to just create a bond, a kind of history with your kids when you are doing anything. Don't think you are helping your wife. Some things I couldn't get from my dad, where, play with you this and that, beat you and stuff. But I've learned that if I want to keep my home, one of the things to do is to be there for my children, is to help my kids, bond with them, take them to park, do the needful. Most time I wash plates. And my child, has one of the times, he asked me, Dad, why are you washing plates? I said, in the world, to lead, you have to be up there. But in this, our home world as Christian, you'll lead by serving. And these are the things I want the people to learn, the fathers to learn, the coming ones, that please make yourself available, but know the word. Because that word will shape you. And the more you learn, the Holy Spirit will guide you and make you a better version of yourself every day. And that's how we can impact the world.
Fantastic. I'll leave you guys with this. He said, I remember what my father said. I think we should all remember what God has said, our ultimate father. It has been amazing chatting with you. Thank you so much for coming.
I appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
And thanks for the opportunity.
I appreciate it, sir.